role to play in fostering peace, cooperation, and unity through the diversity for Europe. And in order to benefit from this role, however, countries of the region will need to resolve some conflicts and to facilitate the reforms that reduce the gap within the Europe's. Am I hearing myself again? So I also want to make a reference to another very important appointment, if I may say, that happened last week in Pristina, and that I was honored also to participate under the initiative of the President of the Republic of Kosovo, Vjosa Osmani Sadriu. It was the first edition of Women, Peace and Security organized in Pristina. And I'm mentioning this because, as you know, we are not part of the United Nations organization. But this doesn't stop us to promote all the values and principles which are enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations. So since also it happened by coincidence that last week was the week of the agenda of the Women, Peace and Security in New York, and so many activities were held on this occasion, since we are usually not invited in these activities, it was really a proper way to organize something in Pristina and bring all the leaders of the democracies around the world and the experts in this field in Kosovo. And that was really, really fruitful conversations and discussions, and also the recommendations. And just yesterday, the European Commission President, Viola von der Leyen, was in Pristina. And exactly in just only a week, all this and so many other activities happened in Kosovo that sometimes it's really hard to take track. But I really wanted to mention to you, because today all these activities are very important to take note, and also to show the inclusiveness of all the values that are promoted around. So actually I would like also to mention and highlight what the President of Commission told to us, that Kosovo will have full support of European integration path, and that, of course, no one has a doubt that Kosovo's place is within the EU. But, you know, sometimes all these promises about the enlargement of the Western Balkans and all the rules that define the integration process not always are measured by singular progress of the state, and of course also of the aspiring countries. Many times it is subjected to internal dynamics, interests of the member states, and of course European Union. So in this period, we are living in the context where in our continent is emerging more and more the fact that despite everything what's happening, it's so important that Europe has to show that it has never been more united. And of course, Kosovo, albeit it's only a candidate country, aligns 100% with all the European foreign policy and security. I don't want actually to read you everything what I wrote about this lecture. I like to be more spontaneous because I know about your backgrounds. I really don't know how much you know about my country. Most probably you always hear about Kosovo, and sometimes I feel that our country history is embedded only with the last war of '99. and we don't go further or backwards, just to make the context. Why it happened, how many wars before it happened, why or what was happening in Kosovo in those years when we were part of Yugoslavia. What were the people like you, students, doing in 81 in Kosovo? There were strong demonstrations of the students because they wanted to have a proper rights. We were not allowed to actually study in our own language. Our University of Pristina for the first time was open in 75, and then to have all this degradation in the 80s, that the conditions were not fulfilled for the students like you. And actually all of this reduction of the human rights, of the violations, of the harassments, of the persecutions, and basically the violation of the all fundamental universal rights brought us to 10 years of this implosion that we suffered and that was not really known to the outside world. And while the wars were happening in the former Yugoslavia, unfortunately, it was inevitable to happen also in Kosovo, because there in 98, actually, the genocidal regime of Milosevic was taking the place. And for that reason, in 99, the intervention happened. The humanitarian intervention happened to stop that regime and ethnic cleansing. Because unfortunately, everyone had the experience what happened in Bosnia before. And that's how we started another chapter, the chapter of liberation, this struggle of liberation that I didn't want to actually go through the history, but that we went through different years and centuries. So for me, it's just really important to tell you how much power you have as a student, how much you can change also sometimes the course of the history of the country, if, of course, you are preparing yourself for the future, and of course, when you are also being an active citizen. As you know, now I will not bother you in between what happened, but in 2008, of course, we declared independence. And that was not really unilateral declaration of independence, how sometimes and very often is cited from the media. It was very well coordinated, and it was quite a long process through all the countries of the Western Balkans, not only Western Balkans at that time, but the democracies, and at that time were called a contact group that went through different processes. And at the time, it actually led to the supervised independence that we eventually decided to declare together with our most close allies, who actually immediately afterwards showed us the support with the recognition of Kosovo. So we had to take this very particular path, which is very ad hoc, I would say, and sui generis, because we had to pursue the bilateral recognition of each country, and you can only imagine how much energy it requires. So this, in a way, made us stronger. Actually, when I joined the Foreign Service in 2009, we were so much enthusiastic. We were the youngest country of the world. Now we are the youngest democracy in Europe. And no one really thought that just last year, another war would happen. And again, the geopolitical order would be in total reordering, I must say, because this has put all the international organizations and the regional organizations some doubts about their values, about their essence of being, and about their targets. Because 93 years ago, when Schuman was predicting to actually have the most prosperous and peaceful country, region in this kind, and to gather all the democracies together, no one would have ever thought that now everything is a question mark. So for this reason, it's more important than ever, as I mentioned before, to see this clarity in unity of the member states, and to unify more as ever the foreign policy and security. And in this, we ever, as a Kosovo, had any doubt to align completely with foreign and security policies and the sanctions of the EU and the United States against the Russian Federation. Although we are not recognized from Ukraine, we do show total solidarity and with Ukrainian population, and being the last country that really suffered the war, we can only empathize and we can only work stronger that everyone should come together to bring peace to Ukraine. This made us reflect on all the means that we have on decision making, on how much diplomacy has the strength to prevent another war, which is having actually not only the consequences in Europe, but also in the rest of the world. And all this actually is making us, all the diplomats and all the decision makers, to work even harder, because it's really important to believe in some values and principles, and we are sure that the justice will prevail. So to conclude, just with some of our foreign policies, priorities, I would say that we really have made the future candidate status country to the EU our priority in our foreign policy, as well as, of course, in the NATO. So Euro-Atlantic integration, if I may say, is our main priority. Right now, we are also pursuing the membership to the Council of Europe, because as you know, the Council of Europe is a very important organization. And it's not about the country per se, how much it is important for the citizens and all the communities that live in Kosovo. So we do believe that this period is the right one, because everyone is seeing who is actually pursuing the right way and the right values and principles. Of course, it's a paradox to say that Kosovan citizens and student fellows like you from Kosovo has some difficulties to move freely. And maybe some of you could not believe this in 2022, but I will bring your attention to just reflect on what you suffered during the COVID pandemic. Not everyone was able to move freely. Well, think about our citizens that are waiting for this right since more than 10 years. Albeit that we have required 95 criteria, which was tripled, because as you know, in all this being it international organizations or European ones, the last comers have to pay the price. So all the lessons learned will become the future criteria. Now we are pursuing this path. And I do hope that next year, if I will be here at the Festival of Diplomacy, I will be able to see even more Kosovo students as you, because I think that today, actually the path to the prosperity, security, and long-lasting peace is only through education and research. Of course, the diplomacy and political and economical agreement do help, but also the cultural one, and especially the education, is fundamental. So without really further ado, I will be really happy to take your questions, and thank you for your attention.
If anybody has a question, please raise your hand. Okay, we can start.
Good morning, Ambassador. My name is Lorenzo Montino, and I would just like to know more about the so-called car license plate war that is happening right now, because the news is not very clear. So I wanted to understand what is the position of your country and maybe tell us about this war, because as the news said, it's not like a very diplomatic move, but of course, we don't know anymore what to believe in or not to believe into. So, thank you.
Should I reply immediately? Okay. This is quite a technical question, actually, to start with. I thought that you will ask me about history or something. I'm pleasantly surprised that you are actually following the news. So I didn't touch upon the dialogue with Serbia because I knew there will be some question, it's inevitable. We started the dialogue with Serbia since 2011. As you know, in 2010, there was legal opinion of the International Court of Justice that actually gave us right to that our independence was declared, but then again, of course, to come to the long path with Serbia, we started the technical dialogue first, and then we continued with the political dialogue. So across all these years, we did reach among 30 agreements, and among them was one of the car plates, which was supposed first to be for some years in force. And the main problem is that in parts of the Serbia, and especially in some cities, especially in one part of the city in the northern of Kosovo, in northern Mitrovica, there are still cars used with the plate KS, which is in Serbian, while we introduced the plates with RKS, which is in Albanian, Republic of Kosovo. But Republic of Kosovo can be in English and also in Serbian, which are three of our actually official languages that we use all the time in all the official documents and in all the cities. And by the way, while I'm here, I will just open a parenthesis that in all the cities which are inhabited by majority of different communities, like being it Serbian, Bosniaks, Turkish, or Roma, etc., the main language would be their own language, and then will be the Albanian. And even more in the Serbian municipalities, they would have even this discretion of studying with their own programs on education, which is actually this shows this positive rights, which are really, really extended, and I must say are taken as an example. And what happened, to continue with the car plates, it's not one of my favorite actually arguments because it's very technical. What happened is that in the meantime, since we had to show always the goodwill on the dialogue in order to move further, because as you know, the political dialogue with Serbia is mediated from the EU, and its end target is that the both countries should be integrated to the EU. So every progress that is made in the agreements should be noted on the progress of the EU integration process. But this was very asymmetric one, because we never even got the candidacy status. We only signed the association and stabilization agreement in 2016, which we are implemented. And so, but we continue to show the goodwill, like example in the car plates. So in order to move further and sign other agreements, even though the deadline always was extended from using those plates, and these extensions went on and on for 9 years. Every time this period has to expire, drama happens. And it is like a political tool to actually undermine the further progress. So even last year this happened. And of course, it is read under a different lens now with a perspective of what's happening in Ukraine, because this could undermine the peace in Balkans. It could be some destabilization. And so this is used as a bit artificial argument, sincerely, because we were offering all the incentives to change of course, the car plates. Unfortunately, what is happening, even those incentives that are very, very important ones for the citizens of Kosovo, and in case Serbian ones, some of them started to change them, but they are really threatened by Serbia. And actually just today, there was a third car that was burned. And this is really regretful, because it's really hard to gain hearts and minds of other communities with all the measures and incentives that you can offer to show the full inclusiveness as a proper citizen of Kosovo. Of course, there are some hiccups from the other side. And so in this case, the most regrettable position is the one of the Serbs in Kosovo. And I can assure you that our government is doing everything. But, you know, even now, in these days, there were some calls that we should extend again. It was just extended a few months ago, if I may recall. And this was the last extension. But you can just understand how difficult it is if we start with extension, extension, extension. Who will take you seriously? Why should all these citizens change their habits? And why should do anything when they are facing all these difficulties? So it's very particular and sensitive situation, which requires more reflection and more understanding from the ground, and even more empathy. And in these cases, maybe even a stronger hand from others who are implying that it's nothing, it's not a big deal to extend. It's very important to understand that these are technical things that are required by all the citizens of one country, and you can't just give a free pass to one community, because, as you know, in our flag there are 6 stars which represent 6 communities, so they should be all treated equally. Thank you.
So, good morning, Ambassador. My name is Paolo Mattei. I am a global governance student at second year, and I wanted to thank you for your speech. And also, if you have initiatives promoting the history and the culture of Kosovo, I think that we will all be very happy to join, because we will love to learn more about it, more that we get in the news. And secondly, you mentioned the recent, sorry, I wrote the name, reforms and solution to conflict. And I wrote about the participation of Kosovo in the Central European Free Trade Agreement. And I wanted to know how, at which extent can the trade be a solution and be a help to the reforms and to help solving the actual conflicts. And also, I heard about the Open Balkan Initiative, and I didn't understand well how it, because it wasn't, I mean, not all the Balkan states that were supposed to adhered. So my very simple question was why, and what is the position of Kosovo? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Also, thanks for your interest in our events. If I only knew, just 2 days ago, actually, we had a beautiful event here downstairs at the center, at the institution for the beni audiovisivi, because now it's very, very hard to translate everything in my head. But this is the thing that actually here in my mission, I try always to promote here with, of course, our embassy, to show a bit of legacy, to not be limited in that period from independence or 99. So we promoted a round table about epic Albanian songs, which are not only songs, because it could be just a name. They are part of our oral history. And we brought actually Lahutar, which is an Albanian, from Rugova Valley, which is in a city in the west of my country, Rugova. And he really graciously surprised everyone, because he was in his traditional costume with this instrument, which has only one string, but talking about history. And the beautiful thing was that we had also two Arbresh professors, which is our older diaspora, which came during the Ottoman Empire in Italy and found the home. Now they are Italians and are part of linguistic minority in Italy. And of course, there was also a very well-known professor from Kosovo, who actually is one of the experts in tradition. And I'm saying all to you just to maybe make you more curious, and to show you how much important it is in today's context to know and to show to the world about the legacy your country has, in this case with the receiving country. So I definitely will extend next time, but please also follow us on social media. That would be also easier to find out. While about the Open Balkans, so this is an initiative. I mean, I'm sure that you are aware about many regional initiatives that happen around, but especially when it comes to the Western Balkans, I have the feeling that sometimes they are mushrooming around and maybe repeating itself on the targets, principles, and values. And so we are part of the Berlin process, which we redeem. It's the only process of the regional cooperation which proved itself to be successful. Actually, last week, among all other things, also another round of Berlin process with Western Balkans happened. And actually, they were reached 3 agreements, which is very important, and they were under the discussion last year. And this was a process that started to give some hope to the countries of Western Balkans when enlargement policy was a bit shadowing itself. So, of course, the EU countries did want to keep us busy. and created this platform, which proved itself, as I said, very successful, and many agreements were reached, and also last week was reached the free movement with IDs among the region. Let's see if this will happen, because just yesterday our Deputy Prime Minister Bislimi was supposed to go to Serbia to hold a lecture, and they stopped him. So hopefully this will be implemented again. And two other very important agreements are the mutual recognition of university diplomas, which finally should happen, and the students among the region could also go from one university to another, or for the further studies, or also to work in the region, which is very important. Another one was also recognition of diplomas of the professional studies. So this is very important. And to come back to the Open Balkans, it started as an initiative from Serbia. And not everyone was invited in the beginning. There were only a group of 2, and then 3, and then they wanted to enlarge. But we redeemed from the beginning that if something happens, it has to happen with all 6 countries together, who sit together, coordinate, and make clear what their objectives are. So this idea has been, of course, around for years, and we think that right now, especially that Berlin process took another, let's say, fresh air. I don't know if Open Balkans will continue anymore, and it's not about to tick the boxes of each of our countries that we have to promote an initiative in order to be a good students in front of the EU. It's about real intentions that has to be implemented. So until we don't see that on the table, we have to consider the real agreements and initiatives where the inclusiveness is full and it's equal for everyone.
Good morning, Ambassador. I am Elena Calafiore, GGTU student, as my colleagues are. And my question is, as Kosovo is applying to the European Union by the end of 2022, if I'm not mistaken, which were the obstacles that impeded to do this application procedure earlier? And also, does the lack of recognition of some European countries towards Kosovo play a role in the application procedure? Thank you.
Thank you. I see that you are very much updated, and this really makes me very happy. Thanks for following everything what's happening also in our countries. Yes, intention of our government is to submit an application for membership. And as you know, also Bosnia and Herzegovina was the last one that applied, and we do really hope that they will grant this, because it's so important to have all the neighboring countries that respect the EU values, and this is the only way to be conditioned in a way with these positive criteria that are set through the different chapters. Of course, we have seen also the experience of Albania and North Macedonia, how much they suffered and how much it reflected into their own governments and changing, and also the delusion of the citizens. So, of course, before we didn't pursue that path, because you have to be also realistic and see around what's happening and which are the criteria. As I mentioned, in 2016, we have signed the Stabilization and Association Agreement, and this is the first step of the pre-accession. And it was, of course, signed also with all other, our neighbors did sign this agreement. I must confess that it is in the substance, it is a bit, of course, different. and it had to be because of the 5 non-recognizers. So it is more, it showed a bit that they are united, but actually there is the diversity on the approach. So I must also say that I don't like to put all the 5 countries in the same box, because with each of them we have a different relationship. And of course, this non-recognition never happened because of Kosovo, but because of their own problems and implications that they might have with their own electorate. Although we always have to highlight that you can never, ever draw the parallel between Kosovo and some other minorities within those countries or anywhere in the world. I spared you today from the very detailed historical narrative what really happened in Kosovo in last century. But of course, if you have time and I will be very happy to indicate you some literature and to see why we can't draw a parallel. So this was mainly also our will and our, let's say, constructiveness towards the member states, to show to everyone that we do respect your position and we are not doing unanimously anything. So for that reason also we wanted to see that we are ready. We wanted to see the progress in the implementation on the SAA, Stabilization and Association Agreement. Also, we had to draw another national agenda for EU reforms. And of course, I must also confess that in the meantime, from the beginning, we are one of the very few countries that do align to the EU communautaire. Actually, our legislation is not approved if previously is not accepted by the line ministries that is totally aligned with acquis. And so there are prerequisites. And now, of course, we have to see how much united is really the foreign policy of the EU. It was not very much in 2008 when we declared our independence, but with everything what's happening in this geostrategical context, with a very clear positioning of my country on which values we do embrace and where do we belong, we believe that there is no space anymore to not grant at least the candidacy country status. Because as you know, this is not the end, that will be the beginning. And then the saga starts. Then we will see, of course, all the interests of the member states, but we are ready because, you know, we can't be every time in the waiting room. Actually, not even in the waiting room, we are behind 2 doors. So we think that the time has come at least to open the door and see what's waiting for us. And hopefully the EU will have the strength, as I mentioned before, when I started to talk to you, will have that strength to reform itself and to make space and make it more comfortable also for themselves to open up to the new members. Because at the end, this is the way how to reorder and of course how to review some of the policies that maybe didn't work in the past, and how to make it more clear for the criteria that have to be reached for the potential candidate countries.
Good morning, I'm Bianca Lustrino, I'm from Global Governance as well. And if I can, I have 2 questions. The first one related to the one you just answered. So I wanted to know if, in your opinion, the UN resolution 1244 itself could be a limit for Kosovo to achieve its own independence and autonomy. And the second one is actually regarding NATO and the K4 actions. So if I'm not wrong, in the last 10 years, there have been 9 Italian commanders for the K4. And so therefore, do you believe that the Italian way to the peacekeeping could be the one which will or could mostly help Kosovo in achieving its autonomy and full independence? Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting questions. Yeah, well, as you know, there is still in force 1244, of course, about the obvious reason that Security Council has and all the limits of the vetoes. So on those bases is still the UN mission in Kosovo, which in reality has very limited anymore activities. And this should not be the implication, because we are talking only for the granting the status of the candidate country. We are not saying that it will happen immediately to become a member. So this is something that should not worry us. And of course, until the Security Council does work on those rules, it will be very difficult to change it. Also, according to that very resolution, we have the Kosovo forces, the NATO forces in Kosovo, with whom I also had the pleasure to work immediately after the war. So, of course, we are very grateful to all the countries that contributed to this peacekeeping and peace maintenance, because they have showed that other than doing their proper job as military soldiers and officials, they were also doing this extra stretch, as always usually happens when you stay a longer term in a country. There were so many humanitarian activities that especially the Italian soldiers were taking it. And of course, in this case, I can't not be more thankful and appreciative, because also I worked with a regiment of Italians in Paese, in my city. And now also again we have the new commander of Italy, of course, about everything what's happening in the region. Everywhere the number of the soldiers and military officials has increased. And this is also for prevention. It's something that should not be read in the different way, but these are preconditions that are set by everything what's happening in the world. And I believe that, to go straight to the point, that yes, Italians can help, also through the others, and they did. Actually, just to show you an example, which I always have to come back about the education and formation and training, how important they are. Immediately after the war, we did have so many mines, field mines. And the Italian army, together with also others, did help us and did train our experts to make the demining activities. And today, we are helping Ukrainian women for this very activity, for demining. And imagine, we are the last country that suffered the war, and we are not recognized by Ukraine, but we opened up to show this solidarity and to transmit everything that we know and what we learn from others to the people that right now are in a worse condition that all of us, but also in the condition that we were one day. So the help and the support, I think, is in working together, formation and education of our soldiers, which actually we have the Ministry of Defense, who is preparing also the Kosovo army to be in few years. And already they are getting the the best expertise from the world. We have so many cadets that are formed, educated in US and UK, and they always have distinguished awards, and they are distinguished for their commitment to peace and security. And just last year, we wanted to show to the world, we had a Pluton, a very, very small group of soldiers who went together with arm in arm with US Iowa Guard in Kuwait. So we really want to show to the world that we do embrace Euro-Atlantic values, and we were maybe receiving the peacekeeping and peace maintenance, but now we are ready to contribute to the peacekeeping in the world. So in this case, I think working hand in hand is very important for the alliance of the future, because for us, there is no other option. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning. My name is Raul Elia, and I am a second-year global governance student. First of all, I wanted to thank you immensely for this speech and for this seminar. I've always had friends that came from Kosovo, and I've always talked with them parents, and it's actually so interesting and so close to my heart to be here in general. So first of all, Folimderi, thank you. I have two questions. The first one is, do you think Kosovo could be in the future one of the first countries for social and civil implements, due to the fact that Kosovo constitution is one of the few in Europe that has, for example, protections for LGBT hate speech, and also held very often Pride March. And also on a gender equality, Kosovo is one of the first countries to have had a female president. And in general, do you think that can improve Kosovo position in Europe? And my second question is a bit harder. Do you think that the election of Zelika Cvijanovic in the Serbian part of, among the Serbian people in Bosnia and Herzegovina in the elections that were held this year might represent a problem in the geopolitical stability of the Balkans, due to the fact that of her comments towards the annexions of Srebrenica to Serbia and her positions on that were. So thank you again very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words, and I'm glad that you enjoy Kosovo. And of course, I invite all of you to visit, because it's one of the countries that has to offer so much for the young people, being 70% younger than 35. So you will feel that you are really walking in the student campus all around, and there are so many different cultural activities and events, and in a place which is a more human size measure, it's even easier to go around. And of course, don't mention the beautiful landscape and very affordable trips. So you are more welcome. There are so many activities. And one of the LGBT actually parades in one of the most successful in the region, I must confess. And I'm actually always not so happy when it's organized, when I cannot be able to join, because it's a really testament of the human rights and how much do the people, of course, are committed to this. Our constitution, it's, as I mentioned even before, it's one of the most modern ones. I mean, being also the last country to declare independence, we had also the opportunity to see the best practices. So, of course, we do promote all the rights and all of the communities and the entities. And in this case, I believe that having the second president woman helps a lot. I mean, we were pioneer in this, and it was, of course, not enough to have only the president or 2 deputy prime ministers, minister of foreign affairs, and many other ministers. But we are very happy that actually this year we did continue with more than 40% of the representatives in the parliament. So this was very nice, because in the beginning we started with 30% of quotas for women, but now all the political parties are reforming itself, seeing that it's about the woman that can bring that inclusiveness of the social rights and gender rights and all the universal human rights. So even this forum, international forum that I mentioned, that happened last week in Pristina, had exactly this target, to show to the world that yes, we are not part of so many international organizations, but we do embrace all the conventions and agreements and treaties that are deriving from these international and regional organizations. So these are enshrined in our constitution, and by default, then our laws have to follow. Of course, as everywhere, there is still so much to do among the society, because these are also the practices that has to be more promoted and has to become natural. But as we are seeing in the world, this also depends from the governments that are changing. So right now, I'm very happy to say that our current government actually is working very strongly and towards that direction. About the other question about the candidates that were elected in other countries, I would prefer not to answer, because this is the right of their own people. And until there are free elections, if there are reports about all the criteria that has to be followed, then it's the will of its people, and no one has the right really to comment on the rights and the will of people who do they want to elect. And by the way, for this, actually, I'm very happy that there were different reports also from European Parliament, but also from OSCE, when we held 2 years ago also the general elections, but also municipal elections, that somehow Kosovo is becoming a champion in organizing them. And of course, they were really free and very clear. And the most important thing was that immediately after the results were declared, everyone congratulated the winner. So this is very important to show to the world that we are not only the democracy, but we act as such. Yeah, sure.
Good morning. I am Eduardo Rasetto, and I'm a global governance student as well. I would like to ask more of a cultural question, because me personally, I don't know much about Kosovo. So I would like to know. I have two small questions. First one is, what is the local language of Kosovo? I don't know if it's more influenced by Serbia, from the times in which it was part of Serbia or part of Albania. And that's, I don't know, just a curiosity that I have. So what would a local language in Kosovo look like? And the second one is a question that I think you raised some years ago, which is if does Kosovo want to stay independent, or does it want to become part of Albania? Because it's something that I heard. I'm not sure if it's true or if it's not true. If Kosovans feel like they are more Albanians or they are more Kosovans, and so I don't know. That's just maybe are just my curiosities, but I would like to know your opinion on this. Thank you.
Thank you. So about the language. We have Albanian language, as you know, and it's one very special language that in the tree of the languages, it has its own branch, and it derives from Indo-European languages. So it's very particular. It has 36 letters. For that reason, it gives us this openness to speak more maybe easily the other languages. And it doesn't have nothing to do with Serbian Croatian that used to be spoken in former Yugoslavia, and which was Croatian and Serbian, and then of course to show some unity it was unified, but immediately after the dissolution of the federation we have seen then all these languages have raised again and have retaken their own original words. So it has nothing to do with the Slavic languages, it's totally different. Of course it's spoke only in Kosovo and in Albania, but also there are Albanians living in Northern Macedonia, in Montenegro, in the south of Serbia, and all over. Our descendants were Illyrians, which someone, if you read about Romans, you will come across. And Illyrians from Dardanelles were more from Kosovo. So the dialect in the speaking, if that's also your curiosity, it's different because in Kosovo is the Gig dialect and in Albania is Tosk. But when we write, we have also unified language. So we are able to understand each other completely, but of course we would recognize. And it's very hard to answer to your second question because of course, as I mentioned several times during my speech, that Kosovo is a very particular country. The most recent democracy, but one of the most ancient populations, which were Albanians and before Illyrians. And for this reason, actually, we were chopped. Our territory was chopped during the centuries. We had different occupations. We had different wars, wars that we didn't want. We are mainly peaceful nation. But, you know, things happen. But ever since 99 and all the commitments we took with the international community, and these were certain standards and criteria to become independent, we are an independent country and we want to stay such. And of course, when you talk with Albanians, from all over, not only from Kosovo, but all the parts of the world, because there are so many big diasporas, and usually they do stick together. It's a beautiful thing, because here when I came in Italy, I found the ancient diaspora of Arbresh, I found Albanian diaspora from Albania, from Macedonia of North, from Montenegro, from Kosovo. So it's a beautiful thing to be together, and this is the best regional cooperation. But when it comes to the voting, it's better to have always 2 votes than 1. So, yeah, thanks.
So we'll see you at 3 o'clock for the last session of the festival. Thank you.